Yo, yo, yo. Y'all hear me? Ain't no sound? There's Rab. Can you hear me now? I had it on mute. Let me know if you can let me know if my mic is clear. Hey yo, is the sound clear, yo? Put a one in the chat if you can hear me. All right, cool, cool, cool. Y'all can hear me now. That's what to do. Yeah, tonight, we're gonna get right into it, man. We're gonna talk about the Afroasiatic linguistic family and the cultural genetic connection. A lot of people don't understand that they try to separate, North Africans and Semitic people and like kind of delineate them from like people from the Horn, like the Highlands of the Horn Africa. You know what I'm saying? I want to do this show kind of stem back to the conversation me, Unc, and Ngozi had. It got kind of heated though. It did get kind of heated because Architect X. We had a conversation with ex Architect. He was kind of wild. Cutting me off and all that. So I had to get a little gangster on him, but I ain't want to get out of hand like that. But I want to keep it scholarly tonight and talk about it. I could see a lot of stuff was misunderstood. He uh he said that the Horners had no genetic connection with North Africans, and they are their immediate cousins. You know what I'm saying? Like an Egyptian and a Habesha person from the Highlands of Ethiopia or closely or just as closely related to each other the same way uh, a Khan person would be related to a Bantu person, or a Bantu person would be related to a Mandinka person. You know what I'm saying? They're in the same family. You know what I'm saying? They're in the same family. You know what I'm saying? But we're gonna get it in. I'm gonna open up the floor too. You know what I'm saying? Anybody wanna get input on this stuff? Worry about the camera though. My camera trying to fix my camera. It is what it is. We're gonna rock. We're gonna rock out. So let's first off let's dig into like the origins, of the Afroasiatic peoples. Let me get my sources together. Give me a minute, y'all. Hold on. Let me get this together. All right, I'm back, y'all. I got the source. What's good with it? What's good with Sonic? Got my Somalian brother in the building. You know what I'm saying? His culture is part of the Afroasiatic ethno-linguistic group. So salute to my brother Sonic. What's good with it, bro? You in the chat. Hold on, let me get it in though. Let me see. Let me share my screen. I'm gonna show multiple sources too. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna go to the Eric first. A little bit of the Christopher Eric work. Yeah, for sure, man. All right, let me get into the area first. We're gonna get into the Afroasiatic civilization. But hold on though, you know what I'm saying? I wanna you know what I'm saying, tell people too that people always say, yeah, you know what I'm saying, the Horn of Africa, yes, the Horn of Africa isn't would consider sub-Saharan Africa. It will be. But the climate in the region, hold on. Hold on, y'all. Hold on real quick. Yeah, y'all. But the climate in the region, because of its proximity, you know what I'm saying? Yes, it's sub-Saharan Africa, but because it's, can y'all hear me, yo? Hello? One, two, three. Let me know if y'all can hear me in the chat. Oh, yeah, you can hear me, yeah. But yeah, but in the, you know what I'm saying? In that region, you still can grow wheat and barley in that region because it's a cooler environment. You know what I'm saying? So I want to show a map before I even dig into this. Let me see where that map goes. Before I even dig into the, you know what I'm saying, to this. Oh, here it is right here. Is this it? Yeah. Let me see if I can make this map bigger. Let me let me download it, copy map. Yeah. Hold on quick, y'all. See if I can copy this map and get it closer. I'm gonna open image. Here we go. Yeah, I should be watching this. Get a real good lesson in it. You know what I'm saying? Chief Excellent, you need to be watching this. You see the map, right? Let me zoom in a little bit. See the colors? Let's look at the legend of the map. You say main vegetation. You see how we got, yeah, you got, you know, this would be considered you know, sub-Saharan Africa. You see this band right here is mostly, you know what I'm saying, through this Sahel region. This is mostly savannah. Savannah right here. Can't really see the colors, but but in this region right here, This is the, you know what I'm saying, this is the highlands. You know what I'm saying? This is where, Afroasiatic language family would develop in these regions right here. The highland regions, these dark regions. They call it a tropical montane. You know what I'm saying? It's tropical, but it's tropical mountainous. Still cool environments. Similar, you know what I'm saying? Some of these regions still similar to the climate right here in the Middle East. It's all part of this, you know what I'm saying? It's not that far off. We don't have the same, this is all the same region, same type of climatology in that region. You know what I'm saying? You see how this is sub-Saharan Africa, but at the same time, it's an exception because it's a little different over here. You know what I'm saying? This rises up into cooler regions where you can still, you know what I'm saying, when wheat and barley spread it, you still could grow you still can grow wheat and barley in the highlands. It's the only place in sub-Saharan Africa where you can grow wheat and barley at. Now, let's get back into the subject matter. Okay. Afrasian civilization. The wild grass collectors of Northeast Africa. You know what I'm saying? We're getting to the birth, you know what I'm saying, of Afroasiatic family and speakers. Now, along along the Nile River itself, you know what I'm saying? Along the Nile River itself, as early as 19,000 BCE, people in northern Nubia and southern Egypt began to exploit sedges, a kind of grass that grows typically in wetland areas for food. These nut these nut grasses produce underground tumors, which these people ground into flour. Excavation sites of these communities reveal the two important kinds of stone tools. Numerous grinding stones evidence evidence the importance of sedges for much of the carbohydrate side of their diet. The presence of medium-sized stone axes suggests that their use of spears, but other small points indicate their probable position of bows and arrows as well. Relying heavily on sedges, these communities would have had little possibility of expanding their economy away from wetland areas along the Nile and into other scattered locales. But probably equally early and certainly before 15,000 BCE, so even before 15,000 BCE, the available archaeology does not yet provide determinative evidence on just how long before then other communities living further south in the Horn of Africa took up an even more productive innovation in their subsequent pursuit. So these two different groups we're talking about here. some of these people that was in northern, northern Nubia and southern Egypt at that time, those were like some type of Ibero-Mauritian type people that was already up there in North Africa. They was, they stretched like the Metroids. These the Metroids that brother Nazi was confused about. Or he talking about. That's what he talking about. With Christopher Area here talking about these people that dealt with these sedges and nut grasses, and then these people from, further south in the Horn, in the highlands, he said nut grass Paul, in the highlands, these Afroasiatic speakers, these people that carry this Mota signature, the Modic component, which was already probably mixed, with Basel Eurasians coming in from Arabia by then, develop, even productive innovation. I heard say other communities living further south in the Horn of Africa took up an even more productive innovation in their substances pursuits. They began to harvest the seed of wild grasses. They became collectors of wild grains. The particular peoples who took up this new way of using grasses spoke languages of Afrasian or Afroasiatic family, just where the society that spoke Proto-Afrasian, the original mother language of the family, lived is not certain, but most probably their country lies somewhere in grassland areas of the far south Red Sea Hills and the north and central Ethiopian highlands. We will encounter other cases of this prefix proto, which is in context means ancestral. They would have threshed. They would have threshed and renewed the wild grains for their seeds, just as cultivators of domestic grains have done in more recent times. Scholars have reconstruction many of the world's used by the ancient Afrasians by substance activities. These worlds reveal, among other things, that the Afrasians, wild grain collectors, ground the wild grains into flour on grindstones, made dough from the flour, and baked the dough in the form of flatbreads. And that's another thing too. That flatbread, is a cultural signal that you find throughout all Afroasiatic speakers, no matter what they look like, from the Horners to the Semitic speakers to the people that, the North Africans, the Berber, the Amaziques, even the Chadic people, they all got this flatbread that they eat. That's a cultural signature right there. Even the Semitic people, they got this flatbread. They eat with their food, even all throughout the Mediterranean, Greek, even through Greeks, you know what I'm saying? Because that E3B, you know what I'm saying, that the Afroasiatic people, speakers, carried that E3B marker, you know what I'm saying, even into Southern Europe during the Neolithic period, you know what I'm saying? So some of them peoples or the mixture, so it has some Afroasiatic culture that was heavily influential, even through the Mediterranean. You know what I'm saying? When we think of Mediterranean food, we always think of that flatbread. Well, guess where they come from? They come from Afroasiatic cultures. So every time, that's why I be saying, like, when we be saying Mediterranean, you know what I'm saying? The Afroasiatic culture was one of the main foundational cultures that gave what we think of a Mediterranean culture, that culture, grain collecting. You know what I'm saying? That grain collecting later on became cultivated. So with a wild grain collecting later on became the cultivated, the Levant, and spread it all over, you know what I'm saying? Especially through Southern Europe, you know what I'm saying, coming from Anatolia at one point in time. The Neolithic, Neolithic Europe. And they say the particular peoples who took up this, oh, I read that read that already. They say the development of the word's corny. And they say the development of intensive wild grain collection was both a substance and a cultural breakthrough. First and foremost, it meant that Afrasian communities now had the ability to obtain a greater quantity of food than before from the same amount of land. They could still pursue many other activities of their ancestors. They could hunt the grazing animals that thrived in the grasslands and could still collect wild fruits, nuts, and the like. But these resources they had added an entirely new and additional source of calories for their diet, the grains. Second, by thus enlarging the resource base, the Afrasian gained a long-term demographic advantage over neighboring societies in Northeast Africa who had chosen other less productive response to the changed climate and environment. Also, to support more people on the same amount of land and thus able to slowly increase its population, the usual local communities of Afrasian grain collectors would have been several times the size of the individual gathering and hunting bands typical among their neighbors. As many of several hundred people might have considered themselves part of the local Afrasian community. With new productive advantage, the descendants of the Proto-Afrasians soon began to spread their substance practices more and more widely across Northeast Africa. So, white and black Egyptians both argue with using outdated. But this thing is like the people that was coming, these different people that was absorbing into Afro-Asian culture, like the Nilo-Saharians, uh, even other groups too, you know what I'm saying, throughout history, even like some of the Khoisan, uh, the Sandawi people, you know what I'm saying, from the South Cushitic people, migrating south. And even some, they say even like Mota had some type of ghost population in him, you know what I'm saying, probably from some type of old hunter-gatherer group, you know what I'm saying, that was in East Africa. I gotta read up a little bit more on that subject, you know what I'm saying. I got some new, some papers, on Mota. Gotta finish reading the book. And they say as the expanding Afrasian settlements impinged more and more on nearby lands, they would have cut into resource base available to their various neighbors and created a new kind of food crisis for those peoples. Such developments undoubtedly led to numerous instances of small-scale local conflict. We need to be quite clear, though, that probably nowhere in the world in those times did people fight large, violently bloody wars. That kind of behavior usually had to await the emergence of the first states thousands of years later. but then, but when the expansion of an Afrasian community did lead to actual fighting over resources, the advantage in numbers at the point of contact would have recurrently favored the Afrasians. So this is kind of an example of what happened at Jebel Jahaba gravesite. You know what I'm saying? These Afrasian, you know what I'm saying, people coming in, they grain collecting, probably have a conflict with these Nilo-Saharan type people. And they say at the same time that the economy of the early Afrasians offered a way out of the food crisis that their expansion itself brought about. It carried with the idea and practices of wild grain collection. Faced with an expanding Afrasian presence in the territories, the neighboring communities must frequently have found it most practical to assimilate the Afrasian example, adopting the wild grain collection, and over the larger term, assimilating into Afrasian societies and coming itself to speak Afrasian languages. In short, the development of wild grain collection technology led in the time to far-flung spread the culture, ideas, and languages of Afrasian people who had pioneered that kind of economy. So that's why you get like, you know what I'm saying, different these hybrid languages. Uh that's why you're probably kind of confused, a lot of, get confused with, you know what I'm saying, A group, A group Nubians, they don't even call it Nubians no more, but A group, you know what I'm saying, culture in Sudan and you know, lower Nubia. So no, which is northern Sudan. So a lot of these languages with these Cushitic languages and Nilo-Saharan languages would have been mixed up, from Afrasian languages, coming in. But then you had some languages that still remain they language, it's just that they borrow a lot of different language and words from the Afroasiatic neighbors. Yeah, agriculture definitely was an Afroasiatic culture. And they had it was Afroasiatic culture, but you also had a Nilo-Saharan presence there as well, you know, simultaneously, mixed in with the group, but they were both, but they definitely were predominantly Afroasiatic, Cushitic type. A language probably was like would have been a sister language to Beja. And they say two primary groups. That's when we get into the split. That's when we get into the, how it break down. And they say two primary groupings of communities arose before 15,000 BCE among the descendants of the Proto-Afrasians. One of these, the South Afrasians, established themselves in both central and south parts of the Ethiopian highlands. This is the older group, it's the more basal group. And they say, I'm say it again. One of these, the South Afrasians, established themselves in both central and south parts of Ethiopian highlands. The early South Afrasians, it can be proposed, adapted the practices of wild grain collection to the cooler grasslands of that region. Just one, just one, just one South Afrasian group, the Amadic languages of Southern Highlands are still spoken today. Other South Afrasian languages were formerly spoken in the Northern Highlands, but these have all died out. The other, South Afrasian, that's because those died out, and they most likely mixed with Basal Eurasians. They mixed with the Basal Eurasians, and then it became the second primary branch, which is the second primary branch is Afrasians. I'm sorry, the second primary branch of the Afrasians will be the Erythrites. So you had a lot of these different you know what I'm saying, South Afrasian languages which belong to the Amadic branches, you know, so which is probably like the motor type. And some of the ones of the South Afrasian that they had a spread, you know what I'm saying? They would at a time, they had a time, time where they had a time to spread. He was the older languages. The ones up north disappeared. You know what I'm saying? Either got overlapped or most likely they became, you know what I'm saying, or most likely they became the people of the secondary branch of the Afrasian family, which is the Erythrites. You know what I'm saying? Just from them mixing with these Basal Eurasians, you know what I'm saying, having contact with Basal Eurasians and out of South Arabia, 22,000 years. You know what I'm saying? In the Ethio-Somali component. And it say okay, the secondary branch of Afrasian Erythrites inhibited lands that probably lay in the northern Ethiopian highlands and may have extended north into the southern Red Sea hills. You know what I'm saying? Because see, the Erythrite languages, basically, that family is the base family of all the other languages, you know, that we know of out the family. You know what I'm saying? The first branch is Almatic, then the second branch branched off from the Erythrite languages, and out of that branch, so you get all the other languages. Around 15,000 BCE, the northern Erythrite communities began moving into areas among the Egyptian Nile. The signal of the arrival was apparent was the appearance of a new tool in the archaeology of Egypt, a small crescent-shaped stone blade used in harvesting of grain. Over the next 2,000 years, the early North Erythrites spread their wild grain-based substance practice northward the Nile Delta, over time assimilating the local communities of the different areas into their expanding societies. See, they talk so they see Christopher Eric is acknowledging that there were people, you know what I'm saying, in Egypt, even before the Afrasians came in from the Red Sea Hills. He basically talking about these Iberian Marusian type people that was already there. These particular Basal Eurasians that already back migrated in and settled, you know what I'm saying, in the North Africa. You know what I'm saying? That's where a lot of the North African DNA, you know what I'm saying, come from. You know, they was like, oh, the North Africa, because they got that, they're mixed, but they still got that Afroasiatic in them too from the Red Sea Hill. You know, if they wouldn't be speaking the Amazigh languages at all. They would have still been speaking some type of what Roger Blanche called ancient North African language. You know, so which is a ghost or a dead languages or hypothetical languages that some of these people in North Africa spoke before the Afroasiatic languages came to that area from the Red Sea Hills and mixed in. You know what I'm saying? So you had these Iberian Marusian type people. You know what I'm saying? There, these tannish, background graded Eurasians. They wasn't no super light, like they weren't like no light skinned Europeans and nothing. You know what I'm saying? They wasn't dark like no Nigerian either. But they were dark, swarthy, a range. You know what I'm saying? Had long, you know what I'm saying, wavy, long hair, kind of like picture of mine of a Dravidians or something. As far as the color, you know what I'm saying, the colors or whatever. Dark, light, you know what I'm saying? But these just Iberian Marusian. You know what I'm saying? These Juzana people who end up mixing with the Tyrian population that was out there too. You know, Tyrians are an old group, you know what I'm saying, an old group of humans that branched off, you know what I'm saying, from early East Africa. But we can get into that on another subject. So what the fuck is that? No, Egyptian branch don't share as branch anymore, but Egyptian went through stages. You know what I'm saying? Hypothetically, the Egyptian had different other dialects that we probably even know about. It wasn't just always one linear language. It became a linear language later. But back then, you know what I'm saying, during the Badari period, even all that, you know what I'm saying, how language usually work, you had different dialects and regional language and went through a bottleneck. We're going to get into, okay, they say over the next 2,000 years, the early North Eritreites, you know, so these the northern, the northern Eritreite, these the northern branches of the language. The early northern Eritreites spread their wild grain-based subsistence practices northward towards the Nile Delta, over time assimilating to local communities of the different areas into their expanding societies. During the 13th millennium BCE, one offshoot of this early emerging cultural complex, the Mushabian culture, then spread across the Sinai Peninsula into lands along the east end of the Mediterranean Sea. In this, in those areas, the Mushabian communities established themselves as neighbors of the peoples belonging to the Cambrian culture. You know, so these the Cambrian were the indigenous, you know, West Eurasians. But they still, you know what I'm saying, these people are still related to the Iberian Marusians. You know what I'm saying? The Cambrian culture is still related to Iberian Marusian. You know what I'm saying? Them people that these Red Sea Hill, you know what I'm saying, these mixed Mota people who already had mixtures from people coming in from the Arabian Peninsula, these Eritreites, you know what I'm saying, these Eritreite people coming in from the Red Sea Hill, mixing with these ancient North Africans, and then they become the Mushabian people in the north, and then these Mushabian people going to going to Middle East and meet up with these, you know what I'm saying, these Iberian Marusian related, but still different, you know what I'm saying, but it's related and, you know, it's probably similar in morphology, you know what I'm saying, to the Iberian Marusians, but these indigenous Cambrian culture people that was already in the Middle East, these ancient West Asian people, uh, already present in those regions. Out of the interaction of these two cultures, a new mixed culture, the Natufian, strongly committed to the practices of wild grain collection and then emerged between 11,000 to 10,000 BCE. So out of the Mushabian culture and the Caribbean culture, you get the Natufian culture. And then it become more and more mixed, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, the Mushabians, you know what I'm saying, mixed with the Caribbean culture, is still spreading this grain collecting culture from these Red Sea Hill type people who themselves were already mixed, but it was mixed with a Beige Eurasian group that came in through Arabia. You know what I'm saying? And they by the time, you know what I'm saying, these mixed multi people, these Eritreites, you know what I'm saying, from moved up through the Red Sea Hill, from the southern Red Sea Hills to the northern Red Sea Hill regions, going into the Nile region, encountering these ancient North African groups, these Iberian Marusian type groups, these Nezalit type groups, these Metroid that was already in that region, you know what I'm saying, and mixed with them people. It is other language related to the Egyptian language, and Egypt, it's Semitic. Semitic is related to Egyptian. Shut up. So you get kicked out of here, Dr. Noob. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. It is languages that's related to it. If it Egypt is part of the North Eritreite family. All of the Eritreite family members are related to each other in different branches. It's just part of its own branch out of the Eritreite family. They do have close relatives. Egyptian is related to Chadic, related to Semitic, and it's related to Amazigh. They're all the North Eritreite branches. And they say at each stage in the northward spread of these substances, practices, communities belonging to the Eritreite branch of Afrasian civilization would have been the prime movers in the resulting of substance transformation. As we have seen, the Afrasian family contribute to widely held presumptions originated not in Asia, but in Horn of Africa. From those areas, Afrasian society expanded both within the Ethiopian highlands and northward through the Red Sea hills into Egypt. And they say the Egyptian, no, the I say, okay, I'm gonna read that again, y'all. I'm gonna read this again for people. At each stage in northward spread of these substance practices, communities belong to the Eritreite branch. Remember, I told y'all the Eritreite branch is the base branch of all the other languages outside of the Amadic branch. All the other languages are Eritreite languages, because that's where they came from. They came from the southern Red Sea hills and they spread it up north. And it intermixed with these ancient North Africans. In certain areas, it became the Fian culture, the Kadan culture. It came in the north came the Mushabian culture, the Merimdis, and all them. You know what I'm saying? Even the Halfan culture, all them different cultures. And then some of them went up into the Sinai, went through the Sinai Peninsula, mixed in with the Cape Breton culture. You know what I'm saying? These indigenous, you know what I'm saying, West Asian cultures. The Mushabeans were already mixed with ancient North Africans anyway, too. They already was mixed with some, some Basel, some back migrated, you know what I'm saying, Eurasian elements that was already in North Africa for a long time. And they went outside the continent and mixed with some other, you know what I'm saying, Eurasians that was already, you know what I'm saying, based there. These people been mixing it for a long time. Even like I'm saying, even when these Eritreites, when the Eritreites became the Eritreites, that's a mix itself. Because the Eritreites mixed with these Basal Eurasians that came in through the southern Arabian Peninsula around 22,000 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Component, and other components, you know what I'm saying? Back and forth mixing, you know what I'm saying, with the Ethio-Somali component. People circumnavigating the damn Red Sea from the Red Sea hill on the Arabian side and the African side, trading obsidian tools before agriculture, before the agriculture came. So these retracts was already here, already mixed before even mixing with ancient North African groups. That's what I'm trying to get y'all to put in y'all head. You know what I'm saying? The Cushitic type is the actual most basal. It's the basal. It's the Cushitic morphology, Cushitic phenotype. It's the most basal out of the Erythrite family. It's an example. It's an example of how them people would have looked before they even mixed with ancient North African people. So they already was mixed, looking like Somalians, kind of. You know what I'm saying? Before, so when they was going into North Africa, when EM 35 migrated into Egypt, into southern Egypt, and mutated into EM 78. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to get y'all to understand. And it say, as we have, as we have seen in the Afrasian family, contrary to the widely held presumption, originated not in Asia, but in the Horn of Africa from those areas. Afrasian societies expanded both within Ethiopian highlands and the northward through the Red Sea hills into Egypt. The ancient Egyptian language, a member of the Erithrite branch of Afrasian, evolved out of a language of communities who brought the wild grain collect substance practices into the Nile Valley. So before Egyptian was even a single language, it comes out of a grouping of languages, of related languages. Dr. Banu, who don't understand how languages even form. So put that through your head. So even sometimes when we say proto, sometimes a proto language represents a grouping of related languages that become the daughter languages too. Sometimes. And they say the ancient Egyptian language, a member of the Eritrean branch of Afrasian, evolved out of the language of the communities who brought the wild grain collect substance practices into the Nile Valley. So Egyptian language, the ancestors of the Egyptian language come out of communities coming out of the northern Red Sea hills. Let me say the earliest ancestral form. Look, the earliest ancestral form of later Semitic languages, another member of Eritrean branch, may have been the language spoken by the Mushabian communities, who carried those substance practices further north into the Levant, another offshoot of Eritrea. Another offshoot of the Eritrea branch of the family were the speakers of the language ancestral to the languages of the Chadic and the Amazigh peoples, which we will learn more in later chapters. They moved westward from Egypt after about 9,000 BCE across the north central Sahara in North Africa. It says society and customs of ancient Afrasians. It say what sorts of social political institution existed among the early Afrasian wild grain and wild grain collectors. Wild grass. Wild grass and wild grain collectors. What do we know of their material culture? What kind of developments did they hold? What can we say about their art and musical traditions? Even the current rudimentary state of our knowledge of those questions into which we can begin to offer a new stretching answer. Far removed in the time as we are from those people, we cannot describe culture into detail for any particular Afrasian society that resided in Northeast Africa between 15,000 to 9,500 BCE. What does remain for our discovery today are a few of the broadly shared ideas, practices, and beliefs of those societies. But it is just those sort of features of culture shared by a wide variety of societies because of their common historical roots, or because the millennia of cultural interaction shared historical experience that define civilization. In this instance, they remain what we may call ancient Afrasian civilization. And they say table 1 at the end of chapter 3 presents similarities of cultural features commonly found at the later period around 500 BCE among people of various African civilizations, including Afrasian. Table 2, let me get all that. Cause I ain't gonna really, like I'll probably show that a little later if I do. And they say the Afrasian peoples from well before 15,000 BCE lived in numerous clan-based communities. By a clan, we mean a society grouping whose constitutional basis is their claim to a common descent from a founding ancestor who lived many generations earlier in time. Whether this claim is real or fictive, is not the point. Clans tend, in fact, more often than not, include many people whose ancestors came from different backgrounds and were adopted into a group at different points in the past. The matter is one's ability to claim a particular clan descent and have one's clan accepted by other members of the clan. See, that's the thing. Like you see that too in a lot of Afroasiatic cultures. Like even like they might have an ancestor that's a legendary ancestor, it's accepted, or might have something that's just made up. You know what I'm saying? Or over exaggerated or took it from another culture and just say that's our ancestor. Proclaiming it, kind of like how the Jews do. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like how the Habesha people claim to be descendants from Solomon. You know what I'm saying? Even the different clans, uh, clan leaders and ancestral leaders that you find in the Somali culture. You know, Asanic, you know how clannish Somali people are. All of that stream from this Afroasiatic, you know what I'm saying, culture. Even the Somalians, I can't think of how it went, but they got a whole saying. They got a whole little saying about the clans. You know what I'm saying? What they say, me against the clan against with all that. You know what I'm saying? I got a whole little model with the clan stuff, type stuff. And they say, what matters is one's ability to claim a particular clan descent and have one's claim accepted by other members of the clan. Most Afrasian peoples of recent millennia were strongly patrilineal. By patrilineal, we mean that the people belong both birth to the lineage of the clan of their father. In matrilineal, controversially, people belong to their mother's clan of lineage, but the evidence as which kind of descent prevailed in most ancient periods of Afro-Asian culture is ambiguous. There are indications that people of the Chateo-Amazigh branch of Afro-Asian civilization were originally matrilineal. You see the Amazighs and the Chadic people originally matrilineal, and at least one Amazigh people, the Tuareg, continued to be patrilineal down to recent times. On the other hand, in the rest of the branches of Afro-Asian civilization, patrilineal descent seems to have been the rule as far back as our available evidence goes. Each Afro-Asian clan community probably had a uh, uh, hereditary ritual uh, officiant among both major groupings of the Retrite peoples, the Kushites. This religious leader was anciently called the Wapir. The asterisk signifying that this is what scholars reconstructed as the word's approximate original pronunciation. We do not yet know the Proto-Afrasian word for this office, although we suspect it was probably not Wapir for convenience sake. though we will continue to use the Cushitic word, you know what I'm saying, for the example. Because whatever the classification was, you know what I'm saying, whatever how you see the Cushitic people was, it was the same all throughout Afroasiatic civilization cultures in the ancient time. We just don't know exactly the name they called it back then. But the Wapir was by no means a hereditary political chief. You know, so whatever this Wapir was, you know, that even though that word come out of the Cushitic grouping, you know what I'm saying, their title or this political chief, you know what I'm saying, that existed, you know what I'm saying, in the Afrasian, you know what I'm saying, culture and traditions. But the Wapir was by no means the hereditary political chief, that is to say, a leader who wielded significant political authority. Decision affecting a whole clan probably were reached instead through extended discussions of large community meetings. If any secular relationship role had to be authorized as the rare instance of war, it would have been a temporary sanctioned by the community only for as long as emergency lasted. Still, the Wapir must have often have been able to be able because of his or her religious authority to exert great influence on the course of community uh, deliberations. What kind of religious belief characterized the early period of Afrasian civilization? Because of many thousands of years of history that lie between then and now, and more significantly, because of the several major transformations in the belief that have taken hold among our Afrasian communities over the intervening millennium, all of which we will learn about is due course. It is more difficult to piece together the religious idea of ancient Afrasian tradition than those of other ancient African civilization. Two key themes stand out, however, so we do have a little something, you know what I'm saying, that connects it. We just can't, you know, find out exactly, you know what I'm saying, how to aim, because the religion spread and changed so much and overlap. And they say, first, the ancient Afrasian, it seems, centered their ritual observance around a clan deity. You know what I'm saying? We see that observed all through Afrasian speakers. We still see that. Each clan at its own particular deity to whom its members owe allegiance. The role, that's why when you look at Egyptian culture, that's why Egyptian do have clans, bro. Fuck out of here. That's why when we look at Egyptian cultures, Dr. Banoob, that's why they have so many different deities. The gnomes. Gnomes are clans. What you talking about, bro? The thieves, the Thebians, that's a clan. You don't know what you talking. You finna get kicked out of this room. You're gonna get kicked out of the classroom, bro. You just need to shut up and listen. I'm gonna prove that to you. The reason why Egypt has so many different deities is because of the clannish type traditions and behavior from ancient Afro-Asian cultures. You don't know what you're talking about. The road clan Wapir was preside over the community rituals directed over that deity and to the active community as the intersector of interpreter of the deity. This connection of spirit survived as the later millennium as the relic feature of belief in two far separated regions where Afrasian speaker people resided. Among Amadic people in southern Ethiopia, among one of whom it remains the key focus of religion even today, and among certain ancient Semitic peoples of Palestine region, notably but not only the ancient Hebrews, who God Yahweh was in origin as a modern biblical scholars have shown just just such an ethnically restricted deity. Because Yahweh usually at first come out of a different pantheon. It was actually the clan deity of the Edomites and the Medians. And they say the ancient Afrasians, in other words, were neither monotheistic nor polytheistic in their conceptions of spirit, the kind of belief system in which a person gives allegiance to the community's own God while still accepting their God's existence is called henotheism. It's kind of what I'm saying. That's kind of what Akhenaten was going back to anyway. I'm gonna say a second thing that all philosophy and religion must deal with is theodicy, the problem of evil. By the phase, we mean the only two common experiences of us all, that the good can suffer and evil prosper, that the rain falls on both just and unjust. The ancient Afrasian worldview commonly attributed bad happening to the activities of harmful spirits. All across our Frasian-speaking world of the later times, from Armadic peoples to Semitic to Semites of southern southwestern Asia, this kind of belief can be found. The demons driven out of sick or mad people by Jesus were examples of this kind of spirit. The jinn of Arabic literature, as in the story of Aladdin's lamp, or the uh, uh, attenuate remnants of this ancient Afrasian view of why bad things happen. One other custom very likely goes back to the earliest eras of Afrasian cultural tradition, and that is circumcising of boys. Nearly universal among the later cultural eras of early Afrasian, circumcision probably originated as a ritual marking of passage of boys from juvenile to adult status. A contemporary family genital cutting uh, and clitory dictomy was practiced very widely among Afrasian societies of later times. Come on, female mutilation, which I very well disagree with. But it's all due from that, they living in war environments and all that stuff, trying to keep women purity, cattle trade and all that. They say, but not universal. The most probably was a later development than circumcision. The early Afrasian grain collectors who moved across Sinai into Palestine in a all likelihood brought the practice of male circumcision with them. The modern day practice of this custom in Judaism and as a supplementary cultural aspect of Islam, two religions started by people who spoke languages of the only Asian branch of Afrasian, Semitic, undoubtedly traced back to this ancient aspect of Afrasian civilization. Interestingly, the Afrasian speaking societies in the far southwestern Asia, unlike the rest of the Afrasians, began at some point in time to circumcise male children just after birth rather than in adolescence. About the uh, about the arts in the ancient Afrasian civilization, we can yet say very little. Most most of that small uncertain knowledge, certain music and dance. Music probably followed a single melodic rhythmic line. We suspect from the wide spread of cultural patterns of later Afrasian speaking societies that early Afrasian dance performance practic, practically used swaying body movements and various kind of footwork. Drums were most uh uh in inf, in, infectedly not, drums were most infectedly not part of early Afrasian musical traditions. You say it again. Drums, I'm gonna say that again about Afrasian cultures. A lot of people get it twisted. Drums, and they Dr. Banud, before the gnomes were gnomes, they started off in clans, bruh. Stop the shit. They started off in clans first. Anyway, drums, I'm say drums were most infatically infatically not part of early Afrasian musical tradition. So they didn't have drums. Drums is not an Afrasian culture, original Afrasian culture. When you see all them Egyptian videos, all the other stuff they talk about in East Africa, they should not be playing on drums. Now, string instruments such as lyres were widely used among later Afrasian peoples by the fifth and third millennium. So when you see Ethiopian culture, you see Egyptian culture, you see Somali culture, you see Amazigh culture, even Semitic culture, you hear a lot of string instruments. That's what you hear. A lot of string instruments. And they say string instruments such as lyres were widely used among later Afrasian peoples by the 5th and 3rd millennium BCE. But whether such instruments can be traced back to very early Afrasian societies before 9500 BCE is not yet known. Early residential patterns favored by peoples of Afrasian civilizations are not certainly known. We suspect the early periods, at least among communities of Erythrite branch, the typical house is likely to have had rectangular floor plan and flat roof, but how the large community was laid out, whether, for instance, people might have lived in villages or neighborhoods of scattered household remains unclear. Let me show you, watch this, right? I know about this clannish thing. Then we're gonna get a little bit to the DNA, to some genetics. I'm gonna do a part two of this channel. And two, we still gotta continue. We gotta finish up the Bantu expansion. I'm gonna finish that up. You know what I'm saying? My next show. No, my next show, if I do my next show, if I do a part two of this, the next one after that gonna be the finish of the Bantu expansion with like an overview of the whole project that I did and kind of wrap that up. Okay, let me see. Home, culture, middle frontier, Sahara, Sudan, Horn of Africa. Yeah, okay. Let me see, do we get into these clans? Let me see. Let's see, talk about Egypt a little bit. Where they get they, you know what I'm saying, different deities and gnomes from. Because each nome had his own deity, and they come from the clan. They come from that clannish traditions of Afroasian culture. So get your ass on, Dr. Banu. You know what the hell you talking about? The gnome had to start from somewhere. In anthropology, states evolve, states and gnomes and all that evolve from tribes. So during that green phase of Egypt, during the green phase when the Egypt was nomadic and all that, before the settlement of agriculture, when they were just grain collecting, agro-pastoralists, they were very tribal then. Pre-dynastic Egypt was fucking tribal. So I had all them damn flags and all them animal representation, King Scorpion and all that. That's tribal shit. So get your ass on, Dr. Banu. What the hell you talking about? Let me see, to the statehood. Let me see, religion. Affinities. Show you some. Show you some about the new. Oh, here we go. You see, yeah, here we go. Let me see. Okay, here we go. Here we go. And it say, look, it said the unification of Egypt. Let me show you. Let me show you the connection with Egypt when they clannish traditions, the clannish traditions that they get this from the Afroasiatic roots and civilization. And it say the unification of Egypt in the late fourth millennium completed the social and political transformation of the country. Sacred chiefs of the Middle Nile Basin culture area became the divine kings of Egypt. You see that sacred kingship that spread it from Nilo-Saharan culture, it became a trend. This sacred chieftain style of kingship spread it to Afroasiatic cultures and they picked it up. You know what I'm saying? It became the divine kings of Egypt later on. That's where it came from. That's sacred kingship. Divine kingship evolved from sacred kingship, what came out of Nilo-Saharan culture, which was adopted from Nilo-Saharan culture. See, watch this. Who was at late as part of the third dynasty still required human beings to be sent along with them into the afterlife. Same way Nilo-Saharan people did. The sacred kingship, and even the sacred kingship also it also the Cushitic Afroasiatic groups adopted that culture too, like the A group people. You know what I'm saying? Burying, you know what I'm saying? Burying, having the sacred kingship, burying uh 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 you know what I'm saying? Things and items and people, whatever, with the king, or holding the king as sacred or the chiefs as sacred. And they say who like and it's, okay, I'm ready again. Say the sacred chiefs of the Middle Nile Basin culture area became the divine kings of Egypt, who, as late of the start of the third dynasty, still require human beings to be sent along them into the afterlife. As part of the same historical drama of unification, the separate local deities. Look, The separate local deities of Egypt's pre-dynastic Afroasian religion were co-opted into new religious synthesis. Let me say it again. As part of the same historical drama unification, the separate local deities of Egypt's pre-dynastic Afroasian religion were co-opted. When we tell what the religion was based off clans, deities, and all that, were co-opted into a new religious synthesis. This became gods into newly polytheistic religion, a religious unification of the country that paralleled its political unification and gave the peoples of the formerly independent small polities of Egypt and ideological state in the new state. An interesting light is thrown on how the sacral leader became a divine ruler if one looks at the religious context. South of Egypt, under the monotheistic Sudanic religion, the later kings of Nubia and the other states of the Sudan belt of Africa retained their sacral aspect, but could never become viewed as gods themselves. In Egypt, where political unification and contrast changed henotheism into polytheism, it is possibly by the time of the third dynasty of the king to convert the clan of the sacral status into a claim of being included among the gods. We can therefore speak of the divine kingship into relations of Egyptian culture, but only sacral kingship within the context of Sudanic civilization itself. So even that, you know what I'm saying, even while they have different deities, even the different nomes have different deities, is based off that Afroasiatic tradition of clanship. It don't matter when you unify, you still had ideas and certain different little shit you got from fucking from Afroasiatic stuff. Hold on, look at this. Hold on. Go back right here. It say, how does growing population density encourage the emergence class differences of society and formation of states? As population pressure increase, a common consequence is growing competition and conflict over the available resource. The existing institution of society, which arose in times when small local social units were the rule and the easy access to resources were available. It say all lack rules and customary laws acquaintance to address the new problems. In the turmoil of such time, the men, or sometimes women, such as the clan chiefs, Dr. Banud, who already hold cultural recognition, roles of authority in societies are particularly well situated to apply the sanction of social influence of other positions in new ways. Those among them who have necessary ambition and talents take the central role in establishing new rules for unequal access to resources. In so doing, this ins, 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 insolidate this. This they insolidate new kinds of political positions for themselves as chiefs or kings in a new layer social order. That's how statehood formed. They come from the clan. So don't ever say Egypt was never the clan. Shut up. What the hell you talking about? You don't even know the evolution of a statehood. Look, the historical roots in Nubian and Egyptian kingship. In Nubia and Egypt, the older Middle Nile Basin institution of Sudanic sacral chiefship evolved by those processed into the earliest kingships. Chiefship evolved until these processed into the earliest kingships. Talking about, bruh. Go ahead and wrap it up and beat it. Let me go to the DNA real quick, y'all. I'm gonna go to this too. See something real quick. Shout out to the chat, y'all. Shout out to the viewers. 14 in the building. What's up with it? Getting it in. With the ancient, ancient Africa, global history. The gnomes came from clans, Dr. Banu. That's what we saying. The gnomes came from clans. Originally, the gnomes were clans. Even having it is clannish. Gnomes are clannish. Cut it out, bro. Even that whole tradition comes out of the clannish ways of Afroasian civilization and culture. Damn, bro. You dead, bro. I'm finna mute you in a minute, dog. Keep it up, bro. Keep it up. You finna be in the back of the class with a dunce hat on, with the cone hat, sit in the corner, the hat on that say dunce. I don't care what I'm talking about, bro. That's where it come from. It's tribals. That same way humans are tribal at the end of the day. There's no way around it. So cut the shit. I don't care what they don't matter what time it is. In the fucking nutshell, it's fucking clannish. In the nutshell, it's tribal. So shut up. Or you get shut up. Or you won't have no freedom of speech up in here. So I don't play that. I'm a dictator. I ain't like the other groups. I'm a dictator up in here. I'm like Fidel Castro. Your ass be out of you be wiped out. I don't play politics. I'm a dictator in my room, in this room. All right. All right, you out of here, bro. You done. You done removing you. Yeah, your ass on time out. 24 hours, boy. You out of here. Go sit in the bathroom somewhere. This ain't like that. Yeah. This ain't no people like you. It ain't no democracy over here. This a dictatorship for you. My people's is a democracy, but for you, it's a dictatorship. Get out of here. I'm Gaddafi in this. Get your ass up out of here. I'm like the Venezuelan motherfucker. You get your ass Biden. Get your ass to the gas chamber. Talk all that gas up in there. Till your mind blow up. It ain't happening in here. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm Edie I mean in this motherfucker. They can get chapter 5. Here we go. Chapter 5, Afro, Afro, Africanity, the Africanity of ancient Egypt. I'm going to the deep background of ancient Egyptian history. 20,000 I ain't gonna get into the more recent back because it's kind of pushed it like show you the relationship with Afroasiatic language. You want to hear it say, well, let me get to now. Moving on down to history. I ain't gonna go into all this. I'm gonna go a little bit of this. It's a history presented here is the history of Egypt's foundation as it is now told as a coherent archaeologist who over the past 30 years have so greatly expanded the reshaped historical acknowledgement of those regions of time. The evidence of the physical anthropology in form of linguistics only further adds to the back to only adds to and backs up those findings. See, when did the particular early Afroasian language directly ancestral to ancient Egyptian come to be spoken in the areas around and along the Egyptian Nile? But answering that question requires first answering two questions. Where does ancient Egyptian fit into the family tree of ancient Afroasian language family? And where the languages of families spoken at different earlier points along the lines of linguistic descent in the family tree? And say regarding to the first of these questions, the most recent finding shows that the Proto-Afrasian language diverged initially into two daughter languages, the Proto-Omotic and the Proto-Eritreic. We talked about that earlier. The Proto-Eritrea turned into further diverged into two daughters of its own, the Proto-Cushitic and the Proto-North Eritreic. The Proto-Cushitic being the South Eritreic branch, which is the most basal, and the Proto-North Eritreic, which is the branches, all the northern branches. And it says still later in the time of the Proto-North Eritreic language itself diverged into two daughter languages, namely pre-Proto-Semitic, this distantly ancestral to the much later Semitic languages, and the Proto-Borphrasian. It is this second daughter language that gave rise to the ancestral line of descent out of which the ancient Egyptian language has as well as the Chadic and the Amazigh Berber, or quote unquote Berber subgroups will subsequently evolve. As the answering the second question, where would the daughter languages of the family have been spoken at successive eras in history? I apply that the long established and set standard tools of inferring cultural history from comparative ethnography and linguistics, two major articles by Jan Vanessa published in 1960s, set out specifically how the principle of historical reconstruction from comparative ethnography applied to African historical studies, while May on recent publication illustrate the application of the linguistic approaches using a variety of examples from African history. Let's say the two primary principles applied to proposing the ancient locations of peoples, languages, and cultural features. One of these principles of fewest moves, often called somewhat ungrammatical practical of these moves of the history of language spread, the spread that required the fewest. It's the family right here, the tree. It's all upside down. I have to get the book to really see it, but it's all sideways. The most straightforward expansion of speakers into the new lands is most probable history. It is application, of course, Occam's razor. This analytical practical principle is, for example, in very lively use these days among geneticists tracking the genetic origins and spread of humankind and particular genes. Similarly, if there is a region where the deepest branches of the language family cluster close to each other geographically, that will be the region where the languages of the family have longest been spoken. The two principles of fewest moves of the greatest diversity commonly support each other in their implication about language origins. So how do these principles apply to the history of ancient Egyptian? The geography of successful branching of the Afroasian tree, but it is between reasonable doubt, one, that the family originated in the Horn of Africa, and two, that the speakers of the language of the family spread in step-by-step succession of advance outward from the Horn. Tracing of this history began to the first two divergences of the family. As already present in feature 5.1, the ancestral Proto-Afrasian language diverged initially into two daughter languages, each ancestral to one of the two primary branches of the family. Proto-Omotic, ancestral to the languages of Omotic branch, and Proto-Eritreic, ancestral to Eritreic branch, consisting of all the rest of the languages of the family at the second stage of Afroasian language history. This second daughter proto-language, Proto-Eritrea, then itself emerged into the daughter languages Proto-Cushitic and Proto-North Eritrea, each ancestral to the two further sub-branches of the family. One of these sub-branches comprised of modern-day Cushitic languages. The second sub-branch, North Eritrea, comprises the whole remainder of the family, that is to say, ancient Egyptian, Chadic, and Amazigh language groups of the Sahel, Sahara, and Maghreb, among with solitary subgroup of the family, Semitic, that has languages spoken outside of the African continent. What are the historical implications of geography of the two earliest stages of divergence of Afrasia? The Amadic, see the early Amadic speaking lands and early Cushitic speaking lands. Cushitic being really basal. Primary branch of the family, one of the offspring of the very first divergence, is entirely restricted to the Ethiopian highlands. The second period, the divergence of the family into two daughter languages, Proto-Cushitic and Proto-North Eritrea, had a comparable outcome. Once again, the languages of one of the resulting two descendant subgroups, subbranches, specifically the Cushitic subbranch, over the long course of history came to be spoken entirely in the regions in or adjacent to the Horn of Africa, lands contiguous with and expanding outward from the lands of Amadic speakers. The approximate extent of the areas that the people speaking Amadic and Cushitic languages had come inhibited of as of around 3000 BCE. The center of diversity principle thus compelled to identify Horn of Africa as the locus of the first two branches of the versions of the family. It's that even more telling in the origin of the Afrasian family in the Horn of Africa then allows us to account that the greatest uh, 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 per, per, prosody for each successively later expansion of the language family. At the third stage in the history of the family, we need uh, we need postulate only a single northward spread of the ancestral proto North Eritrea speakers out of the Horn towards Egypt. Following that spread, just two further single expansions outward from Egypt corner of Africa fully account for the location of the remaining division of the family. Early of those two further expansions involved the communities uh, who spoke the particular dialect of Proto-North Eritrea that we evolved over a long span of centuries into the much later Proto-Semitic language. In linguistic terms, we would give the name pre-Proto-Semitic to the line of language descent. As single spread of this community north out of Egypt across the Sinai accounts in straightforward manner of the proposed. Such later fourth millennium BCE location of the speakers of the Proto-Semitic language in adjacent lands of the Levant. The second further expansion was that the speakers of the Proto language of Chatio Amazigh group began out of Egypt, but in this case, westward across the Sahara. A population spread that the accounts with similar parsimony for the uh, for the later dispersal of the language of Semitic and Amazigh subgroups of the family across adjacent regions of North Africa and Central and West Sahara and the Chadic Basin. in the Chad Basin. One particular powerful set of resources then allow us to propose correlation of linguistic history with the data archaeology and reconstruction vocabularies and material culture at each of the nodes of Afroasian family tree. The words used in those ancient languages serves as a robust cultural archive. They tell us what the people who spoke those languages possessed, practiced, knew, and believed. If speakers of an ancient language had words for particular things and particular activity, then at the very least, they knew about the thing or activity uh, cannot connoted by those words. If we can reconstruct whole suits of words relating to particular cultural objects, activities, we know what these objects and activities were living parts of their culture. And if the cultural suits we reconstruct relate material culture, we can do something else. We can search archaeological record for the times and places where those particular cluster of material features occurred. Proto-Afrasian people, in turn, it turns out, were harvesters of wild grains. As the data in table 5.1 revealed, these uh, uh, these economic focus continue right down through all of the successive early nodes on the family tree. For at least the Proto-Eretric period, they cooked their grains in the form of flatbreads. The adoption of the grain harvesting in the Northeast Africa was mostly likely a response of climate change of the last glacial maximum. Each peaked in the 20th century. Each peaked in the 20th century BCE, widely across Africa. Climates became significantly drier during this era. The effects of Horn of Africa would have included the shrinking of forest areas and a great expansion of grassy areas, especially in the northern Ethiopian highlands. Faced with, faced with this kind of climate change, whichever society first began to harvest wild grains from the newly expanded grassland would have gained a productivity advantage in their substance over other nearby foraging peoples, an advantage that would have allowed their population to grow and expand into new territories. So I'm gonna let me see, I'm getting into the genetics a little bit too. Uh, Let me say, all right, let me get to the let me see something real quick. All right, see some genetics. This is Wiki page, genetic history of North Africa. Let's put right here. Wikieta 2008 examined published Y chromosome data set of Afroasiatic populations have found that the key lineage EM75 and EM78 subclad of haplogroup E was shared between populations in locale of original Egyptian and Libyan speakers and modern Cushitic speakers from the Horn of Africa. These lineages are represented in modern Egyptians, Berbers, Cushitic speakers, but the origins of EM35 subclad mutation was in Egypt or Libya, and its clades were dominant in a core proportion of Afroasiatic speaking population, which included Cushitic, Egyptian, and Berber groups, and in Semitic speakers, but showed a decline in the frequency among Semites going west to east in the Levantine Syria, Mesopotamia region. Kieta identified high frequency of EM5 among Amadic population, 50% among Amadic population, but stated that this only derived from a small published sample of 12. Kieta also wrote that the PN2 mutation was shared by EM35 and M2 lineage, and he believed that this paternal clan originated from prehistoric East Africa. He concluded that the genetic data gave population profiles that clearly indicate males of African origin as proposed to being of Asian or European descent, but acknowledgement that the biodiversity does not indicate any specific set of skin colors, racial types, or racial features, as populations were subject to microevolutionary pressures. They autosomal ain't entirely different. They still got certain different things shared in their autosomal too. Even when you even because that's the thing that's your rap. When what when haplogroups are moved and it goes into a population, they're bringing things into their population that's going to be in their autosomal DNA. So you can't say it's entirely different. That's how population groups work, and they grow and they go into different gene pools. So whatever the group that carry these particular haplogroups into a population, and that they mix it to that population, you don't think that whatever some other DNA is going into the autosomal too? Groups just don't bring haplogroups. They bring their DNA in the other day. When population groups go into a different area, these human beings, they're bringing their haplogroups and they're bringing their autosomal DNA with them, adding to that other group. So when these Red Sea North African groups migrating to North Africa, mixed in with these ancient North African groups, they didn't just bring Y chromosomes with them. They brought their autosomal DNA with them too. These people showing up and they fucking. That's what they doing. They fucking. When you fucking, you're having babies, you bring your autosomal DNA with you. 23andMe, my nigga. 23andMe. 23 of the father, 23 of the mother. How about that? So y'all got to wrap your mind around that. Yeah, stop breaking DNA down like a fucking cigarello. Put it all together. People act like they forgot how the birds and the bees work all of a sudden. I'm getting to talking about autosomal DNA. This North African order. Hodgson, 2014. found a distinct non-African ancestral component among Northeast Africans dubbed Ethio-Somali, which split from other West Eurasian ancestry and most likely closely related to the North African Maghrebi. The Arabian ancestry component is amongst to have been present in considerable amounts among the Proto-Afroasiatic speaking peoples. The split from the Arabian lineage and migrated to Africa from the Middle East. There is a common ancestral population migrated to Africa through the Sinai and then split into two, with one branch continuing west across North Africa and the other heading to south into the Horn of Africa. You still had another, you know what I'm saying? This is one portion of DNA. Another lady did a study, and she found some there was also back migrations coming straight into the Horn from the Arabian Peninsula too. If you actually read the other article of the genetic history of Africa, they got that in that part. 2015 study of Doban identified another ancestral autosomal component in West Eurasian origin that is common in many modern Afroasiatic speaking populations in Northeast Africa, among as the Coptic component. Known as the Coptic component, it peaks among Egyptian Copts, including those who settled in Sudan over the past 2 centuries. The Coptic component evolved out of two main North African and Middle Eastern ancestral components that is shared by other Egyptians and also found at high frequency among other also associated Coptic component with ancient Egyptian ancestry. Without the later minorities medieval era Arabian, the sub-Saharan African influence that is present among other Egyptians. They say they also associate a Coptic component with the ancient Egyptian ancestry without the later minority of medieval Arabian and sub-Saharan African influence that is present among other Egyptians. Okay. Okay, let me see. 2001, Lucas Sanchez, despite the gene flow from Middle East, Europe, and Sub-Saharan Africa, an autochthonous genetic component that dates back to pre-Heliocene times is still present in northern African groups. This analysis has shown as a whole no genetic patterns of differentiation between the Tamazight, Berbers, and Arabs. It's because that's that ancient North African Basal Eurasian, you know what I'm saying, shit that they got in the Bermerusian, kept the Cambrian, that Druids, that type of DNA. End of the day, you know what I'm saying, what them E markers was, them E markers came in dominate. You know what I'm saying? It don't take a bunch of numbers. If you got some people that ain't on that, you know what I'm saying? They wasn't on that how these Afroasiatic speakers was. They was very warlike. Even though they came in smaller numbers, they was on that. You know what I'm saying? They wasn't playing. They was dominating. You know what I'm saying? You had to be these people speaking their damn language now. They speaking Afroasiatic language coming out the Red Sea Hills. These men came up with some technology, some other technology, these back blades and all that. You know what I'm saying? They came with them Glock switches. Some new shit. for the Afroasiatic. I think they got this up to north for the Afroasiatic, but right here in these regions anyway. Then Ethiopia-Somali came in through Arabia. Damn, make too big. Yeah. Green Sahara claim. It's a little bogus. The Fulani one even gonna go back to this map a little bogus, yeah. Hitler's Green Sahara claim. It don't even make no sense. Fulani like. It don't even make no damn sense. Fulani's old as hell. Anything Fulani like back then was something that was Amazigh and mixed with some Nilo-Saharans. That's what they saying this is. Being Maroosians mixed with these Nilo-Saharans. This is a later thing though. You know what I'm saying? But I might continue this. Let me see. I'm gonna continue this on show on another day. Next time I get on, I'm gonna do part two of this. You know what I'm saying? The ancient you know what I'm saying, the Afroasiatic connection, genetic and cultural connection. I'll do some more on this. History of Africa. Here we go. Eurasian backflow. Ramsey in 2018 also found evidence of significant West Eurasian admixture into various parts of Africa from both ancient and more recent migrations, being the highest among populations from northern Africa in some groups of the Horn of Africa. And they say some groups because they're supposed to be talking about the Afroasiatic peoples of the northern highland. And they want to argue that map ain't accurate, yo. That's why I said a lot of these geneticists, they don't like Christopher Ayers said they don't put the history to it. They didn't work with people of other disciplines, so they came up with that bogus ass map. That Fulani, what they said about the Fulani like and all that, don't even make no sense. The Fulani is a combination of things. So I don't know what they mean by like. I don't know what they mean by that. Fulani is already a combination. Even when you see those Fulani traditions in Algeria and those rock, art or whatever, those basically or the Amazigh and the Nilo-Saharan ancestors of the Fulani. People that became the Fulani later on and migrated into Senegambian River, mixed with the Seriri people, became the Fulani there. In addition of intrinsic diversity within the continent due to population structure and isolation, migration of Eurasian population into Africa has merged as a critical contributor to the genetic diversity. This migration involved the influx of different Eurasian populations at different times and to different parts of Africa. Comprehensive characteristics and details of this migration through genetic studies and existing populations could help the explanation of strong genetic references among some geographically neighboring populations. There is no definitive agreement on. I'm gonna get into that. I'm gonna get into this real quick. There is no definitive agreement on when or where original homeland of Afroasiatic language family existed. Some have suggested that they were spread by people with largely West Eurasian ancestry during the Neolithic revelation towards North Africa and the Horn of Africa, outgoing from the Middle East, particularly the Levant. Others argue that that's the wicked argument. But this one is strong with the second argument. Others argue that the first speakers of Afroasiatic were based in Northeast Africa because that the region includes the majority of the diversity of Afroasiatic language family and has very diverse groups in close geographic proximity, which is sometimes considered a telltale sign for a linguistic geographic origin. The subset of Proto-Afroasiatic population will have migrated to the Levant during the late Paleolithic, merging with local West Eurasian and resulting in a population which would later become the rise of the Tufian culture. Associated with the early development of agriculture and early Afroasiatic language, the specifically Semitic. In addition, Y chromosome sub lineage EM215, also known as E1B1B, and its derivative EM35 were quite common among Afroasiatic speakers, and Southwest Ethiopia is possible source of these haplogroups. Under this African model, the linguistic group and carriers of the linguistic of language, of lineage would have arisen and dispersed together with Northeast Africa in the Mesolithic, possibly having already developed substance patterns of pastoralism and intensive plant usage and collection. The Near Eastern agriculturalist hypothesis does not account. No, look, the Near Eastern agriculturalist hypothesis does not count for the domestication of plants endemic to the Horn of Africa, such as teff, insect, and Niger seed, nor does it account for the lack of evidence of intrusive agricultural population or for the growing of wheat and barley sorghum in that region prior to 300, 3000 BCE. According to the historian and linguist Christopher Ehret, the form of intensive plant collection practiced by Proto-Afroasiatic population in Northeast Africa may have been precursor to the other agricultural practices that would later independently develop in Fertile Crescent and the Horn of Africa. I'm not saying nobody black. Ain't nobody in here saying nobody black. We just people, bro. It's good we say they got tropical ancestors. Don't mean we ain't calling nobody black. I don't call people black. I don't do that. That's not science. That's political. We ain't talking about nothing political here. It's talking about people. People with Eurasian DNA, people with some African DNA, some East African DNA. Check it. We don't do the who's black, who's all that. Nah. We don't do the one drop rule here. Yes, the Israelites, they got East African DNA, genetics. They're related to East Africans. They speak a Afroasiatic language, so they speak an African language. We don't do all the categories and did person white, black. We don't do that on here. We do real anthropology. We categorize people and who they is. They got Afroasiatic ancestry. That's what they did. I don't know who the hell black is. Africa got so many different people. I don't know who that is. I see a bunch of different shades of brown people on the planet with various different cultures and things of that nature. While many studies conducted on the Horn of Africa population estimate a West Eurasian admixture event around 3,000 years ago, Hodgson 2014 found a distinct West Eurasian ancestral component amongst studied Afroasiatic speaking groups in the Horn of Africa and to a lesser extent, North Africa and West Asia. Most prevalent among the ethnic Somali. This ancestral component dubbed Ethio-Somali is most closely related to the Maghrebi speaking in Tunisians. See, this component is supposed to, is connected to the Maghrebi. So Artistic X was very wrong about that, what he said about them not having relations. And they said the component and is believed to have diverged from other non-African ancestors around 23,000 years ago and migrated back to Africa prior to the development of agriculture, 12,000 to 23,000 years ago, from the Near East. This population would have crossed via the Sinai Peninsula and then split into two, with one branch continuing west across Africa and the other heading south into the Horn of Africa. The authors proposed that the Ethio-Somali component may have been a substantial ancestral component of the Proto-Afroasiatic speaking population. Later migrations from Arabia into the Horn of Africa around 3,000 years ago would explain the origin of Ethio-Semitic language at this time. At mtDNA analysis of Gadini in 2016 has proposed additional evidence in support of a pre-agricultural back migration from West Eurasia into the Horn of Africa, with an estimated date of arrival into the Horn of Africa in early Heliocene, possibly as a result of obsidian exchange networks across the Red Sea. You know what I'm saying? So it's probably going back and forth around the Arabian Peninsula. You know what I'm saying? Whole nother base Eurasian population. Alderson also confirmed the existence of an ancestral component indigenous to the Horn of Africa called the Ethiopic or the Amatic uh, uh, by Pigini, which is most prevalent among speakers of Amatic branch of Afroasiatic in southwestern Ethiopia. This lineage is associated with with the 4,500-year-old fossil Mota found in a cave in southwestern Ethiopia, which has high genetic affinities to modern Ethiopian groups, especially the endogamous blacksmith caste of the Agmatic Ari people. Like Mota, Ari blacksmith do not show evidence of admixture with Eurasian, uh, demonstrating demonstrating a degree of population continuity in the region for at least 4,500 years ago. But they found some new information about y'all. They gotta update this. They found a little bit of Eurasian DNA in most, but not a lot though. And they say Yellow Gold 2016 concluded that the emergence of Amadic from the Proto-Afroasian language may have resulted from the result of isolation of its speakers from external groups. We were saying earlier, that's how I'm kind of saying how they spread it. And hold on. I heard it say an analysis of 28 Ethiopian ethnic groups, Lopez 2021, revealed that several groups belong to AA Afroasiatic classification of Cushitic, Hamitic, and Semitic, show high genetic similarities to each other on average. Furthermore, the Nilo-Saharan speakers in Southwest share more recent ancestry with Bantus and Nilotics. In contrast, Afroasiatic speakers in the Northeast share more recent ancestries with Egyptians and other West Eurasians. The data also supported widespread recent intermixing among various ethnic groups. Y'all read that again? An analysis of 28 Ethiopian ethnic groups, Lopez 2021, revealed that several groups belong to three Afroasiatic classifications of Cushitic, Hamitic, and Semitic, show high genetic similarity to each other on average. Furthermore, the Nilo-Saharan speakers in Southwestern shared more recent ancestry with the Bantu and the Nilotics. In contrast, Afroasiatic speakers in the Northeast share more recent ancestry with Egyptians and other West Eurasians. The data also supported widespread recent intermixing among various ethnic groups. So it don't matter what they look like, they still related to them Asian people. They still related to them Afro-Asiatic people. They just a lighter version of them. It's a little bit more, Eurasian DNA. It's a little bit more of it. All right, y'all. I'm gonna wrap this up, y'all, tonight, man. I'm gonna come back to this subject, get it in on this again. Right on for Rock with me. We also gonna continue that Bantu expansion again too. Gotta finish that up, y'all. Uh, I'm back though. I'm back active. Holla at me. Glad to be on again. Feel good to be on again with my followers, y'all. Rock with me. Hit the subscribe button, like, subscribe. You know what I'm saying? Share it up. Share the channel. Share the love, share the channel, share people. You know what I'm saying? Tell people about this channel. Hit me up, man. Give me a new camera too.